Hey there, my name is Anthony Romano, and in this video I'm going to tell you how Spartans used to eat in ancient Greece, ancient Sparta, and basically what you can take away from that and what they would do and apply it to your life. So when you think of Sparta, you probably think of, 300, Leonidas, the Spartan soldiers.
This is Sparta!
But one thing that comes to mind all the time is the physique of these guys. Now you may think of like gladiators and stuff like that, but that's a topic for another video. But gladiators actually didn't have the physiques that we think they did, and I can explain that in another video, or maybe even in this one. But for the Spartans, we always associate their physique, and they really emulate the Greek god physique. And basically, when it comes to what these guys ate, it's going to fall very much in line with a ketogenic diet.
This is madness!
It also ties in hand with, topics of bulking on keto and why you are able to bulk on a ketogenic diet. And it's actually one of the more natural human diets to us, just because we wouldn't have access to dense processed grains or anything like that, fruits half of the year. Besides that, no sugar sources, no complex carb sources like we do today. Now, I have another video that explains, the golden age bodybuilders and how the golden era guys would eat basically fatty and protein dense animal products, and that was basically the majority of their diets, especially during the cutting season. But these guys still got ridiculously strong by eating, nutrient-dense animal fats and proteins. And although you don't have to get them necessarily from animal sources, it would be a little more optimal that way because they are more nutrient-dense. But in this video, I'm basically going to explain to you the tenets of the Spartan diet and how that can play in your life. So, this diet is basically the exact way you would imagine it to be. These guys were hunters. They ate large amounts of game meat. These would be healthy animals. They would all be grass-fed because that's how nature intended it to be. There would be no grain-fed animals. There would be no farmed fish, anything like that. Basically, these guys were hunting daily, and they would put their bodies to use and hunt these animals, eat large amounts of fatty animal meats and also fish, and they would also have the occasional fruits here and there when they were in season. And besides that, there would be little presence of grains in the diet. You can Google this, you can look it up. This is just a summary because in general the Spartan diet is basically exactly what you think it would be. These guys would hunt large animals, eat them, and they really treated their diet like a diet. They treated it like it was nutrition and it was vital to all their practices. So this is very different to, the gladiators, for example, because the gladiators were slaves. They basically would be given the least nutrient-dense foods, just, pure carb energy sources, plant foods, fruits. They would just be given the scraps that the richer class really wouldn't want to waste on guys who are probably gonna go die anyways. So this is very different because the Spartans really prioritized this nutrition, and most of the nutrition was coming from fats and proteins. So if you see these guys, they were known for lean, muscular physiques. And the requirement for building muscle is simply enough energy and protein, essentially. That's the macronutrient requirements. So it doesn't necessarily require you to get those from carbohydrates. And this is where a lot of people kind of get things twisted. People will tell you you need carbohydrates to grow, when really you don't. The only thing that kind of twists things is that insulin is key to growing, but you can get insulin from eating certain amounts of food, and protein is very insulinogenic as well, although not as insulinogenic as carbs. So insulin in and of itself is capable of stimulating the muscle building pathway in your body, which is called mTOR, and so is leucine, which is a very anabolic amino acid. So it's a very anabolic protein, which you can find in things like eggs and other meats. So these guys would have enough requirement for the muscle building side of things. And this is because of the lack of carbohydrates present in their diet. This is why they would stay so lean and why they would add the muscle so leanly, if that's a word. But basically, these carbohydrates, when you consume too many carbohydrates, it's going to spike your insulin. So I've explained this in plenty of videos, but insulin is the fat storage hormone. It's also the transferring hormone. So it transfers nutrients into your body and carries them basically into your muscles, into your organs, wherever needs energy. And when it comes to, the restriction of carbohydrates, not that it was even restricted, it was just a luxury. It was something they wouldn't really produce themselves. There was no grain fields, no crops. If anything, maybe some barley, I think, would be the only grain they would eat. But then again, it is a seasonal thing because you would have to farm it. And overall, when you think of these guys' diets, they would be in a state of ketosis basically all the time because no one was making fruit smoothies. Any fruits that they would have, basically the carbohydrate energy would be out of their system within a couple hours. And overall, they would just have the protein requirement and the energy requirement because fat is so dense in calories. Fat has more calories per gram than protein and carbs. So calorie-wise, they were ahead of the equation. And protein-wise, they were ahead of the equation. Even though nowadays we're finding out you don't even need that many grams of protein to stimulate muscle growth. All that you really would need to stimulate muscle growth is adequate stimulus. So heavy training, which I don't even have to make a case for with the Spartans because we know they were training day and night since the age of 5. So there was definitely adequate stimulus, and the protein and calorie requirements were hit, especially because, grass-fed animal fat and protein is one of the most nutrient-dense foods you can eat. And given that there was no, like I said, slaughterhouses around, there was no grain feeding of cows, the meats they would be eating would be of such high quality that the nutrient density within them would basically provide them with even greater of a muscle building ability. So, for example, the types of vitamins found in animal proteins and fats are the fat soluble vitamins. So the fat soluble vitamins, especially vitamin D, act almost like hormones in your body. And when it comes to growing, you really do need it in order to grow. And that's why we get plenty of vitamin D from the sun. That's why it's so easily available to us. It's like nature is just throwing vitamin D at you at all costs. But when it comes to imagine their diet and how to apply it to yourself, if you're trying to bulk on a ketogenic diet or you're trying to bulk in a lean way, this video exists solely to open your eyes to the possibilities, because one of the most famous ancient civilizations built their entire army, literal army, of just jacked meatheads who were lean and disciplined and regimented, all on ketogenic dieting. And even though they didn't know it at the time, because keto is just it's a natural animal diet. Almost all animals are in a state of ketosis, unless nowadays you look at them and they're being grain fed. It's a natural state in human nature, and it makes no sense to say logically that we wouldn't be able to build muscle on it, because if we weren't able to build muscle on ketogenic dieting, then we wouldn't have statues of people from hundreds of years ago being made of muscular humans. It would just be, maybe they were more rare because food wasn't as mass produced, but overall it's still possible, and those people would have presumably been gaining muscle on a ketogenic diet or a natural diet in that sort of way. So this video is just, maybe I'll make another version of this video. Maybe I'll make a little tie-in with the gladiator diet, and how different it is. But overall, I hope this video kind of give you a little more clarity on the Spartan diet and how that can apply to you and your lean bulking goals. So I try to make things a little different here. I try to talk about things that people don't really talk about on YouTube Fitness. But if you're interested, ask me some questions, shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And don't forget to click that little notification bell. Thank you. Peace.